Age of Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark, where we learn to accept living in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.tv, we relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We share information about the facts of radiation and the nuclear industry. We discuss vital current events and explore the roots of social engineering that has caused so many of our beloved friends and family to intentionally ignore the most critical, catastrophic event in human history. We interview activists who do the hard work to discover the truth and get the word out. We dispose the NRC's daily nuclear alerts and take phone calls from our listeners in an effort to fully engage on all topics that are changing our world. We explore exactly how radiation affects our bodies and minds to dissipate your fears and face the truth. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. We share information on how to take your life back from the systems intent on enslaving our bodies, minds, and souls. The Age of Fission radio show will create a venue that all will choose in order to actively engage to save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Good morning, UCY radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Today is Wednesday, which means I'll be doing an interview. I'll be interviewing Thomas Ackerman. We are really in a kind of an ongoing conversation about how to wake up the conscience of people and Americans and people around the world to this issue of Fukushima and the real threat that we're all facing in an effort to demand accountability and a shutdown of all things nuclear. So I want to talk to you a little bit about some things to sort of lay the foundation for this conversation because, they're attempting to prime us up. And by the way, if you have not done so, please do go to the NRC website, look for the no threshold hormesis theory under public comments. The public comments have been extended until November 19th. We really need to bombard the NRC with a statement that says, are you fucking crazy? We want you to test for radiation no matter how bad it is. Although I think if you use the cuss word, they probably won't put your comments up for public. They'll probably disregard it saying you've been disrespectful. So no cussing allowed at the NRC. On my YouTube channel, I'm reading a book called Poisoned Power, Poisoned, Power, by John Goffman. It was written in 1971, I believe. And in that book, it was written by John Goffman and Arthur Tamplin. They started jumping up and down. They wrote these books in an effort to get people to pay attention when they realized the government was not going to pay attention and they were going to summarily ignore us. This was before they built all the nuclear power plants. In the back of the book, there's a list of the planned nuclear power plants. They were not built in the 70s. Our government went full steam ahead against all known science and just blindly ignored it for profit. And they ignored their conscience, and and basically what they did from that point forward was while they were building these nuclear power plants and contaminating the planet, they worked through the media and through the government propaganda to convince people that they were living near nuclear power plants and it was safe, perfectly safe. And let's just ignore the encephaly, let's ignore the cancer, because those things are caused by other elements of technology, not nuclear. And we find ourselves with that same, what I call the 90% rule today. John Goffman studied the Japanese people for 20 years. When he saw the United States government went in right after World War II, took all this scientific evidence and basically shredded almost all of it. So he decided to study them on his own for 20 years. At the end of that study, he came up with a conclusion that the United States military, the IAEA, and the nuclear industry regularly lie about the harm that radiation causes by 90%. They underestimate the negative effects of radiation by 90% and deny radiation causes any harm. And, I call that the 90% rule, and they're sticking with it. Right now in Fukushima, we have people that are being forced to go back to live in towns around Fukushima 12 miles away from the nuclear power plant less than 4 years later. It is raging worse than ever, worse than 4 years ago. They could have done something and they did nothing. They have window dressed it and renamed it. John Goffman in Boys in Power said what the activist citizens need to do, we can stop nuclear power, but what we need to do is find out the names, because in fact, I have done this for the last 4 years. TEPCO, Japanese government, American government, TEPCO. We don't call names, and we don't hold these people accountable. So I looked on the internets, on the Googles, I went to TEPCO's website and had to look around to figure out who the heck is running that plant. And what they have done is rename it. This is how serious these propagandists are. They have no conscience, no soul. They are like the land of the living dead over there. It's just unconscionable. They renamed their the program over there, the Fukushima Daiichi D&D Engineering Company. Why a new company? To provide optimal focus, expertise, efficiency on Fukushima decommissioning and decontamination. That's the D&D. As if, you can decommission nuclear reactors that have exploded and the corium is going into the Pacific Ocean. Mother Earth took care of decommissioning those fucking plants. There is no decommissioning them. And no decontamination. These things will last for hundreds of thousands of years. And unfortunately, it appears to me that the Japanese government has just decided to commit suicide on itself and everybody else. So the company structure, let me get to these names, and then I'll get to interviewing Tom, and we can talk about the conscience that these people who go to work every single day at the end of the night for the last several years, where is their conscience and what the heck are they thinking? So listen to what they've done. This is exactly how the nuclear industry is. They are the most unconscionable, evil people I've ever come across in my life. They call the guy, the head of the company structure of the Fukushima Daiichi D&D Engineering Company, the president is called the CDO, D as in decommissioning chief. Instead of calling him the CEO, Chief Operating Officer, he's the Chief Decommissioning Officer. Decommissioning. Can you imagine that one? That man's name is Nahiro Masuda. Naohiro. Nahiro Masuda. He's the former superintendent of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, who played a leading role in the safe shutdown. So because he could safely shut down one nuclear power plant, now he's required to be the chief of this whole big mess over there and take the blame for everything. And he ought to take the blame. He should have said no to this. He should have said, hell no, I'm not taking a title saying decommissioning. Maybe I'll call it the Chief Disaster Officer. I mean, maybe that's what, instead of CDO, it should really be the Chief Disaster Officer, because that's what he's doing. He's managing a disaster that to his worst nightmares, he could never have imagined this, and he has to face it every day, on top of lying to his own family and to the public and to everybody in the world. And then guess what else they did? This is very interesting, folks. They had vice presidents. They had invitations of the high-ranked nuclear executives from 3 manufacturers. So they got 3 private industry guys to step in and help with the disaster office, to help the chief disaster officer. From Hitachi, 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 we have, and he was tasked with all aspects of maintenance at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. And he was born in Fukushima Prefecture, so he's a homeboy. That kind of makes sense. Toshiba, we have Takuji Takayama. He has over 25 years of experience of work relating to the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. So he knows where all the secrets are. He's been there for 25 years. He knows where the whole disaster is, and he knows how to lie, obviously, perfectly well. And then Mitsubishi Heavy Industries sent over Shigemitsu Suzuki. I'm sorry for plastering these Japanese names, folks. I've never really been exposed to Japanese before. Shigemitsu Suzuki. Let's call him Shiggy. Specialist in nuclear fuels and waste. So these are the people that on a regular basis have in order for them to be paid, they have to put their conscience in the freezer and wait for this, to wait till they go start burning in hell and maybe try to grab it back and beg God for some mercy. So, one of the things that, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the becquerels, the real stuff that comes out of this, right? I don't know if you saw this, but I hope that people do follow and support FukushimaDiary.com. Iori, do you know, I forget his name, the man who runs it is a Japanese man who was forced to leave. He fled Japan because he could not talk about this. But this week he reported that the strontium that they found in, a 3 square meter area of outside the port. They measured the strontium, and it is 2,800,000 becquerels of strontium in a square metered area. And it was actually 155 times the last time they took account, which is about 2 weeks ago, which means the fission is starting to really expound. It's like the numbers of multiples. So all of that hot-winded stuff being said, I do want to introduce Thomas Ackerman. He's an artist. I don't know if many of you are familiar with his work, but he's really an excellent, totally moving artist right outside of in Canada. I met him through the Post-Ignorance Project. He was working on art projects with Kevin Blanche, and he and I became friends through the Post-Ignorance Project. So, Thomas, are you on the line still?
Hello, Age of Fission radio listeners. Hello, Lonnie Clark, woman of conscience, a person who is countering our culture of death at every moment in her life. I appreciate talking to you again. Hello, Lonnie.
Hi, Thomas. Thank you. So, Tom, before we get started, give people your website address, and so that they can Ackerman-artist.com. You can go through the different paintings. I have a section on Fukushima, and I think I'm updating the free radicals as well. And Ackerman-artist.com, double N on Ackerman. Okay, great. Okay. So.
And by the way, the Fukushima Diary fellow is called Mochizuki.
Thank you. Didn't want to mess up his name. I knew it was something like that, but I didn't want to mangle it even worse. He does really fabulous work. I mean, he is very persistent. He actually lives in Bulgaria or Europe or somewhere over there. I think it's Bulgaria. He ended up living and getting an apartment because he had to leave Japan. He was not allowed to report on the things that he was reporting on. He was being threatened, and so he decided, forget this, rather than click his heels and say Sig Heil, he left Japan. And
wow.
Yeah. And actually, I watched a video from last month's foreign correspondence meeting last month in Japan, and the Greenpeace representative was there talking about the dangers of the radiation still ongoing and the real facts about radiation. And it was very interesting because he was being countered by, quote, experts sitting at the panel with him saying, no, we have found that there's no low-level radiation is not harmful. Nobody has died from radiation in the country. The guy about fell off his seat when they said that. He was very well behaved, but you could tell he was like, what? And he countered them. He actually did say, well, we respectfully really disagree, and this is why. And he actually got some very good points out. So if anybody, those foreign correspondents of Japan, those videos I find are extremely helpful because they get scientists in there who will not be silenced. Now, in Japan, they are filtered. People in Japan are not allowed to listen to them, but we in the real world can actually hear them because these are people that are talking to the reporters and countering the propaganda that they're just spewing out, like they were saying that there's nobody who died and that the government says that there is really low-level radiation, is not at all harmful, and it's not going to hurt anybody, and that we ought not to be freaked out. That's the mood in Japan. That's what they're trying. They are making every effort to, obviously, they're forcing people to move back 12 miles away from Fukushima. Children, elderly people, these people will not last long. That's the hardcore reality. So, Thomas, how do we get these people, like the chief disaster officer, to remember what his conscience is about? Because it's not going to be us who are, although maybe it is the pressure from the masses that will force them to be honest. I have noticed on the YouTubes, I watch a lot of, I listen to YouTubes while I'm working, frankly, and yesterday there was someone who just rolled on. You know, if you don't pay attention to your YouTube, it suggests something else. And I was listening to someone, I don't even know who it was, it just sort of went through the day. But there was someone saying, don't eat food from California, you have to be careful because the radiation from Fukushima is out there. It's all over the West Coast and it's going to kill us. Well, frankly, there's radiation all over the East Coast. I mean, if you look at the radiation map that was on businessinsider.com about the uranium, 6 million people with tainted uranium water in the United States with 89 times the level of tainted uranium. It is all over, folks. It's not just Fukushima has pushed us over the barrel. So pushed us into a barrel and over the Niagara Falls. We have not hit yet, but can you tell, Tom, I'm really, like, this is something that's really near and dear. We get to listen to Mr. Popey on, comes here, we're spending all this money talking to the leader of the Catholic Church, and I keep my comments on that one, but how do we get these people to start talking about the disaster that we're ignoring, that every government is ignoring? How do we get that happening? Oh, great Swami.
I'm glad you start with a simple question, yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's a good one. Thank you for that. Well, thank you for that simple question. Actually, it was only one sentence. It was a very simple question. You know what, Lonnie? I think, first of all, a premise. Let's establish sort of a ground floor in all of this, which is what I try to sort of do in my own life to keep it simple. And the first thing that I say to myself, number one, whatever it is that we're facing is totally irrational from the point of view that of all the way things could be, they end up this way. So it's totally irrational. So I'm basically on the side of saying that, and the way the news and everybody talks, they're presenting us with plausible deniability. I think this is actually a concept. So if you're working in an irrational format, you have to work with subterfuge, and plausible deniability is sort of the groundwork of everything that we're facing right now, that they could just deny it. Like when we're talking, people say to me, well, why should I believe you about anything you say? Because it's been set up as everything is plausibly deniable. This is how it works. So if we don't understand this premise that I go by, which is we are confronted with extremely irrational circumstances. Probably the most irrational it's ever been, what I call the culture of death, is the most irrational concept that I have been able to sort of formulate in my mind. The culture of death. I mean, what's that? That's like, what's that literary thing? It's oxymoron. Like, we think of culture as being elevating and enlightening, but the culture of death is an oxymoron, but we live in a culture of death. So, first of all, I don't know if I can answer the question. I mean, I'm struggling with it myself to grow a spine and a conscience in my own life. And I think I go from the premise that I'm countering the irrationality. And that is a very, very tough thing to do, because we've accepted lies from the get. from, the time we're born, we're immunized with poisons, and it's lies that we get right off the get. And so I'm just gonna, you can stop me. I'm just gonna ramble the way things go through my.
No, I'm actually thinking about what you're saying, because I actually really somebody very important to me has recently said that part of why they can't listen to me talk to them about Fukushima is that they recognize how severe this is, and they are fighting suicidal thoughts this person's only 33 years old, and they are fighting suicidal thoughts at the devastation of what their future looks like. They look at the future and go, I honestly just can't face it. It's inconscionable. I know what you're saying, that we need to get actively engaged, but I feel like the only thing it'll do is threaten my life. The powers that be are not going to let us they're not going to just shut down because millions of people are saying we don't want nuclear power. That happened in the 70s and 80s. They still went ahead with it. They're not going to stop it because the science says it's going to harm life on our planet. We see the dead whales, and they continue to make up lies. I know exactly what you're saying, and in fact, they said, I can feel it in my heart. I can feel that this is devastating. This person's somewhat of an empath, and they were saying that it's really, they can just feel the devastation worldwide across from it, and they feel completely hopeless about what they can do in the future. And honestly, it hurt me to my really deep level gut, because I had no answers. We don't, this is the issue. The people that are going to help us come up with the solutions are currently deeply ensconced in the lies, in the lie machine. They're making every one of them, in order for them to get a paycheck, have got to toe the party line, and none of them have the courage or the ethics or the conscience to, and if they do, they're considered, quote, whistleblowers, and they are subjugated to the basement. And they can't, in this country, they're subjugated to the basement. In Japan, they're just immediately terminated and threatened with jail. There are no whistleblowers in Fukushima. If they are super underground, because you can't talk about what is going on. Look, in Japan about a year and a half ago, maybe it was right after I got engaged in this process, middle of 2014, I think it was, a newscaster was eating food from Fukushima and died of a heart attack on television, on the air, and they just said, oh, well, it had nothing to do with the radiated food he was eating, and the fact that he had been eating radiated food. These were people who were like, blow care to the wind. So, this is my greatest frustration here, and this is why I want to have this ongoing conversation about conscience. I've noticed that there's a lot more people posting videotapes on YouTube about Fukushima, a lot more. It is getting out. We can't hide the dead whales. So
we will succeed, Lonnie. We have to, because we don't have an option. We can't fail in this, because the consequences are unimaginable if this continues, this irrationality. And I approach it not from the becquerels, which are there, the thousands of isotopes that nobody has a clue what they actually are, what they do. They feed on each other, they feed on themselves, they feed on anything around them. The age of fission is the most irrational age in the history of all of humanity and all of Earth and all of the cosmos. I think it's actually in the entire cosmos. We're the laughing stock because we've chosen the most irrational path, the path that is so self-destructive. And we're a laughing stock. Those aliens sitting in their ships, the reason they're not coming down is like we're a joke. They're laughing at us. That's what I think. And, what I hear sort of, I get really pissed off actually when I think about people talking about aliens. I can't stand it anymore, because they're if they were going to do something, and some people say, well, they're actually intervening already. Well, come on, let's have this confrontation with the other realities out there. Give us a hand. I'll take any assistance at this point, because we're looking down a very narrow tube. But the reason I think this person you talk about is having difficulties, and that is the irrationality at a certain point becomes just so dysfunctional, both collectively and personally, that we become totally inactive. This is why I think that we're such a small group at this point. The function, our inner core cannot deal with lies. It's just not capable. It's like a young child. You start lying to a young child, they'll become dysfunctional very quickly because it's related to hurt. A lie is a hurt, and a hurt is something that, and I'm talking from personal experiences from very early on. These are moments in our lives that cannot be erased. Now, the degree to which I think a person is capable of overcoming hurt makes us either into active people, complacent people, sociopaths, or psychopaths. And I think this level of hurt that we're unable to overcome is, and each person is different in this. You hear about children that have been abused terribly and have experiences of being hurt terribly, are actually making enormous contributions to the well-being of the collective well-being. There is no formula, really. I don't think there is. It's something very deep and personal. And I think the closer we get to our personal callings, whatever that might be, the more chance of we all collectively have of overcoming this. We need to find that personal calling and dedicate ourselves to that. That's my position. That's why I make paintings.
Well, that's in fact one of the reasons I asked you to interview with me on a regular basis, because you're quite an accomplished artist. Frankly, you've been able to. Most people have the dream of being able to be an artist, but you've actually sustained your livelihood through being an artist. Your artwork really reflects your sensitivity and really brings home the humanity. Every piece of work I've ever seen of yours is extremely moving, I find. And your level of thought about how the culture is working, you came up actually with the phrase, the Age of Fission. I called you up and asked you to use it for this radio show because that was such a brilliant idea. We are now, post-Fukushima, you are completely right. This is why in this radio show, our whole focus is really, how do we learn to just accept living with it and embrace it and understand that there is a lot of joy and a love. And for me personally, I think it's about facing it. Whereas this other person said to me, I can't face it yet, and I said, well, maybe just not yet. They said, well, I don't know if I can ever. And I said, well, at a certain point, you're going to have to, because it's getting bad. Fukushima is getting exponentially worse. That's how it works. When the exponential means it just grows and grows and grows, and there's no stopping it, which is, the nuclear industry badly miscalculated their capacity to manage this monster. John Goffman outlined it in 1970 in a flurry of books that I have been able to find on the internet. There's a book here that I have on my desk called Radiation-Induced Cancer from Low-Level Dose Exposure, an Independent Analysis. It was first edition in 1990. Now, the people that actually own this have a website that I talked to them, and they said they have given me permission to read the book, and I am going, it's one of those kind of a technical book, so I'm not so sure if I can read it. I'm reading Poison Power, but this is the thing about all of these things. Seriously, it's not just the information. Every single day we're bombarded by information, and like the Becquerels, at a certain point, your eyes just start to spin in the back of your head, and there's not much that we can do about it, right? At a certain point, it's, how do we put all this information into this is my question, how do we make the best use forward to actually move forward with all of this stuff? Because honestly, I don't want to just tell people about Fukushima and the harm it causes and the danger that we're in and make people feel freaked out. That's not my point at all. The point is really to just encourage people to actually move forward and be honest and change their diets. Make the changes in your life, because this is one of the things. Post-Fukushima, living in this world, the bottom line is our whole number one goal is to be healthy. We're going to have to really fight. It used to be you could just wake up every day and eat your food and, do your life, and as long as you ate right and didn't do too many harmful things to yourself, you could actually really live a decent life. Now it has been stepped up to the point where we really have got to make a conscious effort to to really stand up and decide that we are going to be healthy people. And that means a whole lot more information needs to be given out to people. So,
Lonnie, I think that, okay, I think you're answering the question you asked, because you say, okay, knowing how bad it is, right? This is, when you say information, on the most part, what you're dealing with every day is very disturbing facts that are coming out more and more and more. And, just look at your own life. Just think about what it is that makes you want to wake up in the morning. And I think you can't go to Fukushima and cap the thing or neutralize the radiation, but you're good at something. So you wake up in the morning because you know somewhere you're good at something, and that's what you do. And I think this is like a microcosm. And the person you talked about, my thought is that, like I try to do in my own life, I'm not going to become a nuclear physicist. I've been doing my paintings for over 45 years, so I have an expertise, or I trust that I do, and I have faith in what it is that I'm doing. So to find that thing that you feel really good about and do it as much as possible, it's like a no-brainer to me. It's like, why would you do something you don't like to do? And I understand people need to survive, and that's part of the strategy that we're stuck in, the lies that
stuck.
You have. Yes, stuck like that.
Is actually the key word. The organization, this man Dave Radcliffe is the person, he owns this, they bought the rights to this book that I was just talking about. This is one of the big frustrations. He wrote me back and said, yes, you can read the book. Actually, today is the, the 20th or the 30th anniversary of his organization called Radical.org. It made me laugh when I saw it. It's called RATICAL, Radical.org. And it's about radiation. What he's doing is writing an open letter proposing divesting from the nuclear industry. And he's been working on this for 30 years. And I think this has been a lot of the frustration, a lot of the anti-nuke activists who are new to the game, because it is a game. It's not, these people are messing with us. They are not taking nuclear threats seriously. So for them, it's a game. But we have people like Arnie Gunderson, who's putting out a lot more videos speaking. Even Ken Buesler's coming out and saying, Ken Buesler, who burned through a bunch of money and told us in the very beginning 3 years ago there wasn't that much radiation, we don't need to be alarmed by it. Now that he burned through the money out there, he's gotten new money and he's switching sides. He's a switch hitter, so now he's out there saying, oh, there's a lot of radiation and it's going to go on forever, and I'm Mr. Concerned Citizen. It makes a lot of us anti-nukers who've been following kind of angry at him, because
or like the idea of scientists come out and say, oh, the ocean is so big, it doesn't matter, it's just going to dilute, it's not a big deal that way. I mean, how unconscionable is that? How can a scientist actually say with any straight face that nuclear radiation, which has millions of years of time to go, that, it'll just dilute? I mean, it's not like a dirty smell in your compost.
But you know what is really what they're missing out on is, in their head, this is the propaganda. From France, they had been, Europe and France, basically when Greenpeace prevented them from dumping straight out into the ocean, they built pipes, and now there's a slow leak of the radiation, the radioactive waste that goes into the Pacific Ocean. All of the Irish Sea is contaminated. I mean, the cancer rates are off the charts. What they're saying, though, is in theory that we don't have to worry about it because we've been doing it for so long. What they're not acknowledging is Fukushima is unlike anything we have ever seen. It is not something small. It is beyond gigantic. It is 2,800,000 becquerels in a square meter area. You know, it's an unconscionable amount of strontium that is pouring into the ocean. The animals, they're really, honestly, what's being lied about is the fact that there is just not enough. There's just no fish that's coming out of Fukushima. It's just that wildlife is disappearing. The birds, what they say, last spring they counted 12 sparrows in Fukushima. 12. And now they just don't talk about it. There was, in fact, at the correspondence dinner, a journalist was talking about the silencing of the crickets. There's no more cricket noises. Well, why aren't there cricket noises? Because there's no crickets. I mean, what they're doing is they're dancing around the idea that we have a major fucking emergency that is being ignored by every major government on this planet. Every government ought to lay down their arms and their weapons and focus all their entire military force on these Fukushima power plants and bury those things or do something with them, because they are literally going to kill the planet. And, you know, we are getting lots of people with a conscience, people out there that are listening to UCY radio, and thank you, listeners, for plugging in and listening to this conversation. You know, these are people of conscience. The people that listen to this radio show are people of conscience. They're people who are fed up with the system and are looking for alternative radio to help them, you know, figure out ideas that we can do to defend ourselves. Because at this point, the war is on the populace of the planet. You know, I think I said this. I don't think it's World War II, World War III. I don't think World War II ever ended. And they are just coming into full force now, kicking in their major offensive on the population of the planet. And
here's what I think, Lonnie. I think that I'm going to make a bold statement about the condition of the source as much as I can. When, you know, I mean, I can have a nice pub talk and talk about different artists and techniques and all that kind of stuff, you know, the information. But the source of what I see here is that we're facing a final frontier. And it's not Star Trek going to other planets and all that. Well, maybe that'll come in the future. But people have always, the Swamis and the Gurus come out and they love talking about consciousness. And consciousness is everything. There is no distinction when you deal with consciousness. It's a rock, it's a molecule, it's a person, it's a dog, it's a cat, it's a walrus. Consciousness is everything. But our challenge isn't consciousness. What the hell is consciousness? We are a consciousness. What our challenge, our final frontier, is conscience, to do the right thing. It's like, what is it that's going to take people to shift away from this esoteric quality of our existence into the nitty-gritty of it? And that doesn't mean that you or I are going to step into Fukushima and fix it. I've had people say, well, if you're so sure about something, go and fix it. Are you out of your mind? I wouldn't step within 100 miles of that plant. So the point is that our final frontier is conscious, the conscience that is going to actually elevate us, allow us to transform into a culture that actually functions. So here's the question in my mind. How do we individually begin to be able to do that? Here's another slogan. It's like, what's it going to take to get it? Are we going to kiss off on everything, or are we going to get it? It's like one or the other. And that's the conscience. That's what the conscience is going to answer. Are we going to kiss off on everything, or are we going to try to do the right thing? And doing the right thing is the issue now. It's like, I think about it in terms of making a painting. There are so many versions a painting can have that when you start something and you have colors, even let's say primary colors, you have an infinite range of mixes that you could end up with. But you end up with one painting. And I feel good about a certain painting after having millions and billions of possibilities, theoretically anyway. What is that? What is that? You see, I focused in on this thing that I really love to do. And I come up with something, and people may argue it's good, it's not good, or whatever. But I've decided this is what I want to do. I feel good about it, and I have to tackle it, or I have to do it. I got to do it. I have to do it. And it's got nothing to do with Fukushima, Becquerel's, the Illuminati, the alien, nothing. It's something that I really like to do. And I think out of this comes a natural desire to kind of pass this on. It's like when you wake up in the morning, Lonnie, there is some impulse in you that makes you want to take your first breath. And, you know, I try to say thank you. I wake up and the first thought I try to have in my mind is to say thank you. Even if I'm like feeling miserable about something, I try to actually verbalize in my head to honestly say thank you. And I think this is the first step. No matter how difficult.
Let me ask you this, because you said a word that sets me off. So, do you actually do that?
Yes, I wake up. I wake up in the morning, and you know, depending what time it is, I'm more sleepy than others. But as I take my first step, I get out of bed. I literally say in my mind, "Thank you."
You don't try. You actually do it.
Yeah, I get up, and then you know, I start thinking about different things that are bothering me, or I'm challenged.
Well,
I got to
the reason
take care.
I ask you that, Tom, is because I'm really a stickler about words, and for me, my children will know this. If you say that word in conversation, try to me, I can't. Honestly, I can't abide it, because either you're going to do something or not. When you say the word try, in my view, it allows you to fail. So I always told my kids, I don't want to hear the word I'm trying. Either you're doing it or you're not. You're giving it your best effort or you're not. Eliminate the word try from your vocabulary, and I believe that you'll be more successful. I've been a huge stickler on that. So listen, I want to read, based on what you were talking about, I want to read a poem from Lao Tzu. You know me and my little poems. It's very, very quick. It's number 18 in this book, translated by Witter Bynner. It's number 18. When people lost sight of the way to live, came codes of love and honesty. Learning came, charity came, hypocrisy took charge. When differences weakened family ties, came benevolent fathers and dutiful sons. And when lands were disrupted and misgoverned, came ministers commended as loyal.
Uh-huh.
Isn't that exactly what we've got going on right now in Fukushima?
Yes. He's explaining our culture of death, yes.
That is it. Now, this poem was written, 600 BC? So it was a long, long time ago that this has been translated through the ages. And honestly, we're humans. This just goes to show us that we are just humans. We are the same creatures with the same emotions over a millennium. We're the same people. We're not, the cultures sort of developed. Carolyn Meese, in her book, Sacred Contracts, referred to this. She examined all of the major religions, and she comprehended that all the major religions have the same 7 sacraments. Humans have a certain, in her view, we have these sacred contracts, like nothing is an accident. All of these things, we come here with a mission to fulfill, a spiritual mission. Our free choice is whether we will acknowledge that or not. And when you acknowledge it, life goes a lot smoother, and you are working in harmony with sort of your mission in life. And right now, we're living on a planet where there's not much harmony, because people are not even connecting to the fact that they're important. Every person on this planet that gets born is important. They have a mission here on purpose. And, this is what we need to do, is wake people up to the idea to embrace and love themselves. And this person that I was talking about really does have a good sense of self-esteem, which creates the devastation. Mostly because they really want to have a future that they feel like has already been taken away. My point to that person was, we can push back. The people that are creating this chaos want us to be devastated. They want us to feel like it's hopeless. So we click our heels, seek Heil, put our arms out, get an RFD chip in our arms, and move along. Eat their GMOs and move along and be willing to accept cancer. That's not my idea for life. That is so out of harmony with who we are as human beings. I resist that. I personally am going to stick with the life that God created, not the man-made, we can create life, sort of mad science gone mad, as Jules says. So I hope that people listening to this radio show will figure out a way to really get active And because we need people, we do need more YouTube videos up. We do need more people contacting their senators and saying, we need to make sure that the nuclear industry, the NRC in the United States, does not go to the hormesis model, and I expect you to voice your opinion with the NRC also. I actually did that with my own senators and said, by the way, I just made a comment at the NRC about we want to maintain the standard no threshold model that any radiation, zero radiation is what we need to achieve. And not go with the idea that radiation is probably good for us because we've got so much of it. That's what the hormesis theory is about. They want us to say it's good for us because we have it and there's no getting out of it, so we might as well just accept it. I'm not willing to accept that big, bold-faced lie. But I did call my elected officials and say, I expect you to make a comment, and I gave them the NRC's website and said it's www.nrc.gov. Please make a comment there because it's vitally important. The reason I said that to the elected officials office is maybe the person answering the phone might go, I better do that myself, because I don't think our senators are going to be putting in a comment. So
I don't want to drop your Lao Tse yet, because I think that what you read, okay, I'm listening to what you're saying, and you're coming back to the facts, ma'am.
Facts, ma'am, right.
Yeah.
Facts.
And,
It's facts.
it's not about the facts. What I like, you bring up this enlightened being, and I actually, my approach to this is, I mean, he's articulated this culture of death, as I see it, beautifully. But, Taoism and the yin yang and all those kind of things are symbols that represent something. They're not the source. And I think we're failing to find the source. We can look at the poetry and the paintings, but we got to find that source within ourselves. So, Lao Tse was probably having a good life. I mean, I don't know what emperor. He must have impressed the emperor, whoever he was, or wasn't he at the time of Confucius or something?
Yeah.
They seem to kind of like hit it. They have these enlightened beings for some reason come at the same time. And but what I discard them all from the point of view that it hasn't worked. Now, you'll argue with me maybe and say it works for you. And the only reason it works for you is because you're inspired. You're not bludgeoned into understanding something. You are inspired. You read this poet and you walk away with something that has activated inside yourself. And to that extent, they're valuable. Outside of that, I don't give a crap about any of these philosophies or philosophers or religions. I have a total disregard for all of it because it hasn't worked. Now, certain things have worked for me through this feeling of inspiration, of being inspired. The first time I saw Cézanne...
Tom, you know why it works, why it's not working? It really has to do with the coercion and it is the culture of death, the culture of money, with this whole idea that, like, these people, let's say his name again, Hiroshi Arima, Takuji Takayama, Shigemitsu Suzuki, the three vice presidents from the industries of Hitachi, Toshiba, and Mitsubishi. These people are making boatloads of money. Their family lives a really excellent lifestyle. They make a lot of money. They are not connected to their conscience. And these are the people that we need to ask the hard questions to. Why do you call it decommissioning when it's not decommissioning? You're managing a disaster.
We need to isolate them. We need to isolate them so they have no more effect on us. That's what we need to do. We need to grow a spine and stand up to these people that are running the joint into the ground. They have
disaster officer Nahiro Masudo. Maybe that's what we ought to do is get an online petition going to Nahiro.
Remove them. Get rid of these bastards.
Yeah, we need to ask them the hard questions, whether they will answer it or not. We already know ahead of time they will summarily ignore us. But I think the movement has to be about demanding the answers. Like, how can you call it decommissioning when it is an ongoing disaster? It's not decommissioning anything. There's nothing to decommission.
My movement, Lonnie, is, again, Lonnie, this is, when you talk to me, And my concept of this is we need to find the personal inspiration. In order, there is no specific end of that inspiration. Is it a painting, or is it activism to become a politician to change the whole thing? And those politicians will have our paintings on their walls. It's going to be like when Kennedy went into the White House, he took down all the paintings and put up the abstract expressionists, the contemporary painters. And that was Kennedy, John Kennedy. And then when Nixon came in, he took all the Kennedy art down and put up Andrew Wyatt. So this is like, philosophically, spiritually, inspirationally, this is so connected to us having an impact if we can act out our inspirations. And we need to find that within ourselves. And, the people that are running the joint are going to be isolated. They're going to be removed, because when a huge portion of the population begins to feel in touch with that thing they really love in themselves, this is when we're going to make the change. That's what I think. Mm-hmm. And I think, I listen to stuff, Lonnie. I listen to you reading that book, and I really appreciate it, because these are very early on in the 70s, people that nailed it. I mean, they understood, Tamplin and Goffman, obviously they really knew what the hell was going on. And it's been watered down since then, because when you're reading this book, the indictment against this industry is phenomenal. Yes. I mean, how could this have been missed? How could this have been missed? I mean, it's amazing.
It wasn't missed. It was ignored. And that's the point. They ignored it. And this is why I think John Goffman became so prolific. He wrote all these series of books. He was jumping up and down trying to get the public to pay attention. And frankly, in those days in the 70s, people did pay attention. At least here in Oregon, they were able to stop a nuclear power plant from being built. And what the nuclear industry did, they are long-term planners. They waited out. All of the anti-nuke activists are old people. Like the guy from radical.org, he's been doing it for 20 years. He's founded this organization 20 years ago, and these people continue to spew out the facts, but what's happened is we are unable to motivate people to get beyond. I mean, it kind of came in conjunction with Reaganism, like the whole idea of money matters, money's the only thing that matters. And that's kind of my quick and dirty of what I call Reaganism, is that only money matters. And this is what happened, is they went full steam ahead against this book, Radiation and Human Health, and the book that I'm reading, Poison Power. Poison Power listed all of the nuclear power plants in the back of the book. And it is actually stunning how many of those plants actually got built. And then you look at the cancer rates, you overlay a map of where the cancer clusters are, the sterilization rates of people who cannot have children. It is off the charts, and these people intentionally ignore the facts. It is not, this is why facts in a way don't matter. What's really got to happen is we've got to talk about the conscience of people to love. Helen Caldicott's radio show is If You Love This Planet. And honestly, that is really what we need to keep asking. If you love this planet, you will get active. The reason I got active was specifically because of Helen Caldicott's radio show. She had Carl Grossman on, and he said every single person needs to not shut down their internal voice. We will get ideas, and we all need to take action on whatever they are. This situation is so grave. We need millions of people actively engaged to stop it, because it's not going to be easily stopped.
I think you said it better than Helen, actually. What you said was that if you love yourself, you're not going to let this happen. And I think this is a very crucial question. What does that mean to truly love yourself?
Right.
Does it mean enriching yourself with all the wealth that you can accumulate in a lifetime? Or are you going to leave the planet a better place because you loved yourself and you loved your children and grandchildren? If you love yourself, yes, you will love this planet. If you truly love yourself, if I love myself, I will do the best I can with what the power is in me, what I have been gifted. What is the gift that is me? What is the gift that's you? What's the gift of every person? What is the gift that we've all received? It's like that first breath in the morning, thank you. It's like that feeling of the gratitude, that feeling that allows you to flower, to do who it is that you are. What an amazing thing. like do that 7 billion times, we'd be the goddamn conquerors of the cosmos, like in a good sense. I mean, in a good sense, you know?
Well,
It's
this is the hard part for the youth to get over. And this is one of the things that I told that person. You know what? It does start with gratitude and self-gratitude and loving yourself. But it also, you have to kind of, I know I drudged through many years of severe depression. I think you know this, that I was I like to say a thriver of child abuse, because I didn't just survive. I was determined to thrive. But
That's the example I gave. Remember, I said that some children who are really hurt, in spite of everything, make enormous contributions.
Right, and I really was determined that I was going to be a good parent, that I was going to be everything my parents were. I had my faults as a parent, but both of my children are very strong, loving women. But this is the point about all of this, is really, we can't just tell the youth of America, oh, you have to love yourself and then you'll fight. It's about being willing, because for many years I acted as if, I took that old sales Adam, I acted as if the sale was already done, as if I really did love myself, as if I really did look forward to the future. And I took up activities that made me, that I would have done had I been really happy and had I really moved through it. And it was kind of a way of unprogramming myself unconsciously. I didn't realize it at the time, but what I did was releasing the chains by just saying, you know what, this is where I want to go. And I searched out a lot of help. I did a lot of, personal therapy internally. And I think that each of us in this age of conscience, this has got to be the next age. You know, we're living in the age of fission, and the foundation is going to be conscience if we are to move forward. So
you have to begin to do the right thing, and the way you're going to have an effect on people is by inspiring them through your actions, not by your words, but by your actions. And that's like, when I get inspired, I look at a painting. I'm talking about art because that's what I do. I look at a great painting and I'm inspired. That's through action. That's not somebody saying, oh, I'm a really good painter, I can really do this, you know. No, I see it up front. Yeah, I'm inspired, and that's how people respond. Being inspired. You'll inspire your daughters.
Well, this is one of the things that I learned, and I got this from the Four Agreement, is that everything in existence is a manifestation of the one living being we call God. God is everything. He came to the conclusion that the human perception is merely a light perceiving light. And he also saw that matter is a mirror. So, this is something that we can all... This book, The Four Agreements, is really a magnificent book. I would really encourage every single person that hears this radio show to get this book. It's a very short book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, R-U-I-Z. And it is a great foundational philosophy that will give us the courage to actually face living in the age of fission, because we not only have to change our diets, we have to exercise, we have to be committed to eating the right foods, we have to feed our spirits and our souls food for thought and food for health to help us be more emotionally balanced. This is one of the books that I really believe will kind of give you a foundation, and you don't have to give up your religion. It's a really awesome book because it's a philosophy on how to move forward. So, Tom, I see we have 20 seconds left. I want to thank you for being on the Age of Fission radio show. I hope to have you back.
I'd like to say one more thing. There's a lot more courage in caring than in pummeling somebody. That's what I want to say.
That is perfect. Thank you so much, Thomas, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.